I was listening to the story about, it was a story of a family in Washington, and the little boy called the Bigfoot the Cowboy Man. And he had, apparently it had made an effort to steal this kid. And it hit me. My children were in that playpen behind me with nothing but a mosquito net over them. It could have crept up behind me and taken both of my children, and I wouldn't have known.
Father just got like a Mustang or something from Wyoming, okay? He had it out in the corral because he couldn't put it in the barn in the stalls with the other horses because it would kick and made all the other horses nervous. Had a Seminole Indian working the horse trying to break it every day. So they had it out in the corral. This skunk ape snuck up behind this horse and grabbed it on its hind quarters. This particular horse kicks out, jumps over the corral, runs into the pasture, to get away. At this point, the rancher's out there just blasted away with the 30-30. The skunk ape runs into the swamp.
I went up there one day after that, or 2 days after that. I went up there and sat in silence up there, and I'm telling you, man, it was free. It was crazy. There was a crazy vibe up there still. I did what I could to kind of get things under control, but I told her, I said, you need to get off this property. I feel like no matter how strong you are, it's almost like standing in the ocean. You can't stand still without moving your feet. You're going to get knocked over eventually, no matter how strong, whatever. You can't withstand a barrage of weird spiritual energy.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Paranormal Odyssey. I'm your host, Wayne, joined, as always, by my partner in crime, Miss Tiffany. What's up, man?
Oh, I'm glad to be here. I triple booked myself today. It was busy. It was so busy.
How did you triple book yourself?
Well, you know how I get on you about not having a schedule for your personal life and your show? Yeah. Well, I had to eat crow today because I did that to myself. So I was
What'd you do?
Okay, so I have some things in the works that I'm doing, some writing that I'm doing, and I had planned this get together with my mother-in-law and my sister-in-law and my niece 2 weeks ago, and I completely forgot. I set up this whole writing project thing going on, and then I remembered, and so then we were going to look at a dog today, and I had still to do the writing. We were gone all day with my mother-in-law, and I got everything done today, but nothing done at the same time.
Well, you got the dog, at least, right?
Well, we are going to go bring Hunter to meet him Monday, but they're both submissive, so we'll see when we get there. But, I mean, Carrie went today and absolutely is infatuated, so.
Yeah, you sent me the video of her playing with them, and you're going with the hound dog versus the St. Bernard, right?
I know, but Wayne, it just rips my guts out because Jackie's so sweet. And he's just so beautiful. He can't help it. He's a St. Bernard and he's big. But yeah, Carrie definitely handles Nelson Lane. She middle named him. I mean, this is big business. If our animals have a middle name, they're our animals. And she middle named him. So we will see if Nelson Lane Duran becomes a part of our pack on Monday, which I'm pretty sure he will because Hunter's like, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, that was going to be my next question. Is he for sure? Are y'all getting him?
Well, I mean, if everything goes okay with Hunter, then yeah. I mean, we're going out. Everything I didn't get done today, I've got to do tomorrow. And then we've got to run out to the pet store and get him his very own leash and his very own collar. I've got to shore some places up around the fence because he is a hound dog. So.
Yeah, they will hunt.
Yeah, well, and I mean, pardon my French, but the people are just assholes. He failed at hunting. Okay, he failed. So they just dropped him off at the shelter.
Yeah, dickheads.
Yeah. So,
he looks like he's a good looking boy. He really is. when you sent me the pictures of both of them, I was secretly hoping that you would go with him because, I'm a Tennessee fan, and our mascot is a blue tick hound. So hound dogs have always had a special place for me. He's a good-looking boy. It looks like a typical hound dog.
His ears are so big, and they just
Yeah, but he's
hang
white.
down.
White. He's white though.
Yeah, he's white, and he has a black spot right in the middle of his rib cage, and there's the brown markings on his face like a hound. I just love him.
You get him, we'll share some pictures.
For sure.
All right. All of that out of the way. You want to pay some bills?
Yeah, if we gotta.
All right, guys, if you are new to the show, please do us a favor, hit that subscribe button before you leave. Help Miss Tiffany and myself continue to grow this show.
And if you would like to be on with Wayne and myself, you can reach out to both of us, Wayne at paranormalworldproductions.com, or me, Tiffany at Paranormal World Productions. We do have an opening on the 5th, so that is just next Tuesday. So I think, right? Yes.
No, 2 Tuesdays, I think.
Oh, God, it's been a busy day. 2 Tuesdays from now, we have an opening. If you would like to grab that, just reach out to both of us, and we can book you anytime in November.
I want to ask everybody to head over to paranormalworldproductions.com. That is our website. Check out all of the other shows under the studio's umbrella. We got some announcements coming up. We're going to hold off on making those, but some exciting stuff coming up with Paranormal World Productions. I can tell you that it is like 99% sure we're getting a brand new show. Not just a regular show, but a big, big show. We're going to be adding to the studio. And one of the older shows is getting a revamp. And that's all we're going to say about that right now. But head over to paranormalworldproductions.com. Check all of those out. Sign up for the Bigfoot newsletter. Pick up some merch. All of that cool stuff.
And as always, if you have questions for our guest, we put them in. If you put them in all capital letters, we highlight them for the end of the show, and we do a rapid fire Q&A. As long as they're in all capital letters, it helps me to be able to see them better and highlight them for you.
All right. Everybody, as always, the memberships are still open. If you would like to become a member, become a PO freak, get early access to some of our stuff, get extra members only live episodes. They're so much fun. Had one not yesterday, but last Friday, and they're so much fun. You were invited to join the members only Discord, just all kinds of cool stuff. It is just $1.99 a month. And as Ristel and Alex say, best $1.99 ever. Can't even get a Coke for $1.99, guys.
I bought a 20-ounce Sprite the other day for $2.29. And that would have paid for a month of.
How long did that Sprite last you?
Not long.
Yeah, a couple hours.
Yep. And it didn't do anything but make me burp. I mean, I didn't even enjoy it that much.
Yeah. You could have spent that over here with us and got all this extra content and be cool enough to call yourself a PO freak.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. And lastly, guys, before we get to our guest that is patiently waiting backstage, we're going to talk about her in just a moment. As Tiffany and I have talked about the fees and everything with YouTube, we have been asking you guys, because so many of you send us super stickers. YouTube likes their fees. They take out quite a bit, which is fine. I mean, we wouldn't have this show if it wasn't for YouTube. We understand they have to make money, but we do too. So if you would rather help us out, we accept Cash App and Venmo. You can send those directly over at any time, and then I split that with Tiffany, like the next day usually. Yeah, we are a good ways away from our goal. And we're getting close to the end of the month. So if anybody wants to help out tonight, we would certainly appreciate that. If not, we love you anyway. All right, let's talk a little bit about our guest. We got Miss Melissa Adair backstage. Melissa was sent to me by or from our good friend, my really good friend, Dr. John Baranchuk. She lives in Georgia, as John does. They spoke together at a conference in Virginia here a month or so ago. And John texted me like right away and said, if you need a good guest, a Bigfoot guest for the show, Melissa Adair is awesome. She would like to do the show. She's done podcasts before. She has all kinds of cool information. What does Mr. Tiffany say?
His reply to Ristles.
Oh,
Did you see Ristles?
no, I missed it.
He said, remember, every time the like button gets hit, Wayne will take a shot.
God, don't say that. Anyway, Miss Melissa Adair was sent over from Dr. John. They spoke together, and John spoke very highly of her. And he doesn't do that for everybody. So I reached out immediately to Melissa, and she was on board. I'm very, very lucky, very happy to have her. And she's backstage waiting. If you were ready, ma'am, if you don't have anything else, we'll go ahead and get her out.
I don't. You can grab her.
Melissa, how you doing, ma'am?
Hey, doing great.
Thank you for
Good.
coming on.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. And guys, before we came on, I had to warn Melissa that she had a Bigfoot behind her, that she needed to be careful. He's just a little one.
It's just a baby.
Yeah. All right, Melissa, you are in the state of Georgia. Have you always lived in Georgia?
I have. I live in Northeast Georgia, just a little outside of Athens, where the University of Georgia is, for those that follow the SEC. Go Dogs.
Boo. We talked about that a little bit.
I had to affirm that. Let's just throw it in there just a little bit.
But, I mean, you're an alum, right? You went to UGA?
I am an alum.
Okay.
I am.
So you can get away with it.
I've claimed them the last few years. Before that,
Yeah.
I wasn't, I wouldn't say I wasn't proudly proclaiming my status as an alum, but
Well,
it's just been a
recently
few.
you guys have a hell of a football team.
They're doing pretty good lately, so we're pretty proud of them. Not sure what happened with Alabama, but it is what it is.
Yeah, these things happen. Happen, unfortunately. But Melissa, tell us what piqued your interest. What got you started in this crazy field? How long ago was it, and what happened?
Well, I began doing active Bigfoot research in 2005. But before that, it really started in my childhood. My father was very interested in the subject of Bigfoot, and I would watch programs about Bigfoot with him. I'm a child of the late 70s and early 80s. And so whatever programs were there, that he would watch, I'd watch them with him. And he had a book, I think it was a Reader's Digest book, and it was called Strange Facts and Amazing Fiction. And it had the famous Patterson Gimlin picture of Patty, with her arm out. And I used to always just look at that picture in fascination, and was just mesmerized by it at an early age. And then, we're a musical family. So my dad would play the guitar and we would sing songs about Bigfoot. And so it was just always a thing in the background as I was growing up. And then in 2004, we lost my mother, and we lost her that summer. And then that fall, he came to me and said, I just want you to know that my interest in Bigfoot is still very much alive and well. And I've taken it to the interwebs because, the World Wide Web was just really ramping up about that time. And I said, well, that's great, Dad. And he said, yeah, I found this organization. It's called the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization. And it's, they teach you how to look for Bigfoot. And they do these expeditions all over the country. And they're coming here to North Georgia in February. And I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah. And I said, Dad, you should totally go. And he's like, I don't know. And I said, well, I said, if you don't want to go by yourself, I'll totally go with you because that sounds like a really good time. And so I've always loved to camp and hike and do all that kind of stuff. So this was right up my alley. And so my dad took me, and he took my brother too. I think he felt guilty about taking just me, because it was my brother's birthday weekend. And so we took him, and my brother is a classic type A personality. He's a former federal agent, and he's thinks we're all nuts, right? Okay, so he went, and he was totally, just there to kind of make snide comments and just be himself. So my
Yeah.
dad and I, we ended up sneaking away from him and going out and doing some research with some of the other people that were on the expedition, and we had the best time, and we met the nicest people, and so that led to more expeditions, one after the other. We just really got into it, had so much fun, and just kept meeting the nicest people. And so I decided that, uh, or was asked, I guess, to be an investigator, for that organization for a while, which I was. I did that for a while, several years, helped organize some expeditions, and just had a lot of fun, and really learned a lot and met a lot of interesting people. And I really enjoyed interviewing witnesses, and just learning about their sightings and such. And so I've, I've been pretty much all over the country. I've done expeditions all over the country with different groups, and have been pretty active in it, until I guess right around 2017, I started my own business. And so I kind of took a step back from all things Bigfoot for about 5 years. It was very much in the background. I would do it here and there when I got a chance. And then, of course, COVID hit in 2020. And I got really avidly into off-roading. I have an off-road vehicle, and have some buddies that help me lift my rig and teach me how to off-road and do all that kind of stuff. So I got really into that. And so I was able to go further into the woods and uh, just do research in a different way than I had previously, and just made me love it all the more. So I've just kind of fallen in love with it all over again. So in the last couple of years, I've started to just get back into it and do a lot more than I had been doing the several years previous. So that's where we are today. I'm back doing the research, and I've been doing some speaking engagements and just meeting a lot of really cool people and having a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you were affiliated with the BFRO. That's how you got your start. You left, but now that you're doing it again, are you back with the BFRO, or are you doing it on your own?
I'm pretty much just doing it on my own. I have friends that are in the BFRO, and I will go researching with them. And I haven't done any official BFRO expeditions, gosh, in years. But I have friends, and we'll just kind of do our own thing. So that I like to just kind of move around, do my do my own thing. I love going out with different groups and meeting new people.
Yeah, yeah. I myself have several friends in the BFRO. One of my really good friends is Lori Wade, that does the expeditions in Tennessee and in North Georgia. She leads those, and she invited me to go on one, and I got to see firsthand what you guys do. And the BFRO doesn't have the greatest reputation for whatever reason. A lot of people look down on it, but I've been very vocal and adamant that my time, the little bit of time I spent with them, I had a great time. Everyone was so friendly, like you said, they were friendly and welcoming. And I know Mr. Moneymaker is very avid that Bigfoot is a flesh and blood creature, and that's all they talk about. One thing that I took away from the expedition that I went on, Melissa, was how many people I met that were there that were interested in the woo, that claim to have those kind of experiences. Where do you stand as a researcher? Are you flesh and blood? Are you woo? Or are you like kind of like myself, somewhere in the middle?
Um, my when I first started into research, I pretty much said that I was leaning towards flesh and blood, but I've done this for like 20 years now. So, um, how I usually answer that question is I know that I don't know. And so, I have a very open mind. I have interviewed, a number of people that I know well, that have had experiences that would fall into the quote unquote woo camp. And so, I find them fascinating. And I have recently heard someone describe, the different phenomena associated with Bigfoot and Bigfoot sightings and all of the other cryptids out there, um, UFOs, aliens, the whole bit, that described it as all facets of the same diamond. And I thought that was a really great way of describing it, based on all of the different reports and experiences that pop up, that we hear about, that we read about, that we get an opportunity to interview people about. Um, there's just so much we don't know. I mean, there's just I have a hard time listening to anybody say, definitively that it's this or that, because how do you know? This doesn't really exist as far as science concerned, right? We're still trying to figure it out. Still a mystery. So that's how I answer the question. All I know is that I don't know.
Yeah, you kind of touched on something that's really been rubbing me the wrong way lately, and had words with some people in the community because I can't stand someone that puts it out there as fact. These people that say, well, they have day watchers. They they have their family structure is this. I'm like, how do you know? Have you witnessed them doing that? I mean, it's your opinion. I mean, what you should be saying is, I believe they have day watchers.
Right.
I
Or I
believe that,
strongly feel that, or
yes,
whatever. But yeah, not, yeah, yeah. I just don't think that anybody can definitively say one way or the other what it is, because there's so much we just don't know.
exactly. And these people that claim without actually coming out and saying, you can tell it in the way they talk, the way they carry themselves, to be experts, a Bigfoot expert. I mean, what the hell is a Bigfoot expert?
I
There's no
don't know.
such thing as a Bigfoot expert. We don't even know if these things exist for real. I believe they do. I believe I've had a sighting. I've had crazy things happen to me in the field that can't be explained by anything other than what I believe Bigfoot, but I don't know. I haven't had that daytime Class A sighting. Have you had a daytime Class A sighting?
I haven't, and I live for that. That would be awesome. Every time I drive down a dark and scary road, I am just so hopeful that it will just walk right in front of me.
Yeah.
But that never happens. So no, I haven't had it. But like you, I have had a number of different experiences that would be considered Class B, that have ever changed me and, made me feel, that there's definitely something to all of this, and that there is, things I cannot explain. So, um,
Okay.
so
Well,
yeah,
let's talk about some of those, Melissa.
okay, sure.
Just if you don't mind, like if you want to go in chronological order, just talk about some of these crazy things that have happened to you.
Sure. I one of the first things that happened to me, was on my third expedition, and that was with the BFRO, and it was in West Virginia. And it was the first time that something happened that made me go, oh my gosh, this is real. This isn't just a joke. This isn't just, people, wishing, and this cool little nerdy club. That's not, this is just, there's really something to this. We were, let's see, we had all been out in town getting dinner, and three people had stayed behind in camp and had walked along the river there, maybe a quarter of a mile or so, and sat down on a rock, in the dark, and turned off their lights and just listened. And while they were there, uh, they experienced rocks being thrown at them. They heard growls. It was two men and a woman, and the woman got so scared she was physically shaking and wasn't really responding to them. She was terrified, and so as the stuff happening to them and around them escalated, they realized they were going to have to get her out of there because she was just completely terrified. And so they got her out of there and brought her back to base camp. Um, and then shortly after they got settled in base camp, we all returned from dinner. And there were 10 of us that returned from dinner. And then there were the 3 of them there in base camp. And so they come running up to us and relay everything that had just happened to them. And so we're all like, oh my gosh, we have to go back. We go back. So the 13 of us went back to the rock. We were all so excited. We went up there, sat on the rock, turned out our lights, sat and wait. And then like nothing happened. Just crickets, there's just nothing happening. And we're like, oh my gosh, they just were telling us all this cool stuff was just happening. And, nothing happened. So we started talking and we're like, well, maybe there's too many of us. This is a big group of people. Maybe we should split up our group. So we did. And, we 6 were in one group, 7 were in the other. I was in the group that stayed at the rock. And then the others went ahead up on the trail a ways. And we decided we'd radio back and forth and make some calls and do some tree knocks. And so there was a guy in our group that was really, really, he was a big guy. He looked like a linebacker for professional football team. He was a big dude and he was strong. And he had a Louisville Slugger baseball bat. And he went up and he did our tree knocks for us. So you can imagine they were quite loud. He did some really great tree knocks for us. And so we would radio back and forth. And we did this a couple of times. We gave it a rest and just listened for a bit because we were all hearing movement around us a little bit, but we couldn't be sure what it was. I had 3rd generation night vision. Somebody had given it. It wasn't mine. Somebody had let me use it. And if you haven't used that before, that's like military grade night vision. So it's like looking through daylight. You can see everything around you. And so I was using, and they were binoculars. So I had, really good view of what was around us. And so I was looking, I couldn't, and that's kind of creepy, when you hear things moving, but you can't figure out what it is or where it's coming from.
Very,
And so,
very good.
yeah, so I was looking around. I could not just figure it out. If it was a deer, I couldn't see it. I could not, I don't know what it was. And so, then we decided to do some tree knocks again after a while. So our guy did a tree knock, and then immediately following his tree knock, there was this huge blast of a tree knock that would like made his sound quiet. And it came from a slightly different direction between the 2 groups. And they radioed back right away that wasn't us. That wasn't us. We didn't do that, And so everybody's eyes got like saucers and like, oh my gosh, who did that? That's real, or whatever. And so that happened. And then it didn't happen again, but we kept hearing movement. And then all of a sudden there was like, I can only describe it as a man beast howl. There was like this, it came out of a huge chest cavity, and it was on the ridge up behind us between the 2 groups. And so, it's like, if you've ever heard that Ohio howl that's been recorded, it sounded so much like that. And it just made the hair stand up on the back of your neck. And it was like right behind us up on the ridge. And we were just saucer-eyed. We were like, oh my gosh, this is real. Something is out here. This is crazy. And so then things started being thrown around us. And I walked a little ways up the trail away from my group, just a few paces away from the trail. And I turned back and was looking at the group through 3rd generation night vision. And I saw like a branch, like a pretty good sized branch, like you would throw on a fire about that big, go up and over that tallest guy's head. And so I immediately went and looked down from the direction that it came from, and I couldn't see anything. And I freaked out. And so I was just telling the group what happened. I passed the night vision off to somebody else. I'm not seeing anything. Somebody else see if they could see something. And so that went on for a while. It was also the night of the first freeze, and it was really cold. And so we stayed there. That went on for hours, just having like things fall. And we didn't hear another howl like that again. But the group up ahead was seeing eye shine and hearing more movement. And so anyway, after we'd been there for hours and we were all like popsicles, we decided to go back to camp. But that was the first experience I had that I was just like, that is crazy. There is something out there. I mean, there's no way to access that ridge behind us, that it's just there in the middle of the woods. And that was like, I don't know how to describe it. It was like a man, but it was also like a beast, and it was just loud and sustained and long. It came out of a huge chest cavity. So I was like, at that point I was like, there's something to this. So I was hooked after that, right? I was like, any expedition I could go on, I'm like, I want to see this thing. I want to see what this is. So we went on a number of expeditions, but we also did some of our own research. And one of the things that happened, I guess, after that was it was a Father's Day weekend, and my husband and I we were with our family and my dad, and we were all staying in a cabin somewhere up in North Georgia in the mountains. And so we decided that we would go do a little research one night. Our kids were young, and we put them to bed, and they were in the cabin with my family. And so we just, we took off and did a little research in this area that we had, heard were some sightings and stuff. And so we went at this trailhead area, and we just went. It was a trailhead, and it was like a circular gravel drive where you park and then you hike up the mountain. And so we parked. My husband put his computer and speakers in the back, and he did a little bit of call blasting, and he had recorded some of the Sierra sounds and looped them in with some other nature sounds and just some weird, interesting sounds. And he was just blasting that. And we'd seen some deer on the way in, on the drive in. And then when we got up there, I heard some movement off to my right that kind of went to my 12 o'clock. And I just made him aware of it. I don't know if you heard that, but something moved, right here. It said our 12 o'clock. And then as he kept blasting that sound, I heard it move off to my left. And so it was, I don't know, we were sitting in this gravel area, and it was at least, I don't know, like 100 feet or 75 feet from me into the tree line. And so I didn't want to get out of the car. That was the other thing that was weird too, is usually I'm really brave and I get out and I walk around, but I didn't feel comfortable and I didn't want to leave the car. So I was sitting in the passenger seat with the door ajar, and I had my feet on the gravel, and my husband was standing out away from the car. And so I just kind of looked down at my feet and had readjusted. And as I was kind of looking down, my head was kind of dropped down. When you're blindfolded and someone walks up next to you really quiet, you don't hear them, but you can feel that they're there. It's that biokinetic energy that's there. Well, that's what it felt like. It felt like somebody came up and put their head right between the V of where the car door opens from the car, and leaned in to say something to me. So much so that I sat up really straight and looked right there, but nothing was there. It freaked me out so bad. And I was like, that was the weirdest thing ever. And so I looked down again at my feet. I didn't say anything to my husband. I looked down at my feet, and then all of a sudden it started in my toes and it went all the way up to the top of my head. My body started to just like tingle, and it felt kind of almost euphoric. It didn't feel bad, but then I start like, oh my gosh, what did I eat? Am I having allergic reaction? What's going on? And so I figured, well, before I fall out, I should probably let him know I'm I'm feeling kind of weird. And so I said, I feel really strange. And I said, I feel tingly. And I looked at him, and he was looking in the same direction from which I was kind of feeling this. I was experiencing this from, and he was just kind of staring straight in that direction. And he said, so do I. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so weird. And I said, do you think this is, do you think we're being zapped. This what I guess what they called it in BFRO or whatever. This infrasound phenomenon or whatever. And so we're like, and he's like, maybe, I don't know. And so I'm like, well, do you feel scared? Do you think we should leave? And he's like, no, I don't really feel scared. And I said, well, do you think we should leave? And he pauses and he's like, yes, I think we should leave. And I'm like, okay. So as soon as he said that, I yank my feet back in the car and shut the door and just wait for him to get back in the car. He's picking up, he's putting all the speakers down in the back, and he closes the back and he gets in the car. And I am so, I am freaking out so badly that my teeth are chattering. I can't talk without my chin bopping up in between trying to talk. And I've never had that happen to me before. I was just like so freaked out. And so when we get down to the main road to go back out of the area, he goes, we have to go back. And I'm like, what? And he's like, we have to go back. And I'm like, why? And he goes, I left my brand new GPS on the ground. So that was when the handheld GPS had just come out. That's how long ago it was. So he had this brand new handheld GPS. So we had to drive all the way back up there. And we're both like at the dash like this going, oh my gosh, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? You know, so we go all the way up there, and we couldn't see anything, and we didn't have any real experience when we were there. But the next day we went back during the day and walked the area that we heard the movement from, and then from the area that we felt that this experience was coming from. And there was a very large impression in that area right there. It wasn't a perfect footprint. I have since had tracker training and studied some of that stuff more in depth, but at the time I had not had that. But knowing what I know now, thinking back on that experience, that was definitely an impression made by something heavy. And what would have been, I think, the toes were pointed right in the direction of where we would have been. So I think that was, I think something was there, and I don't know how to explain, what happened to me. So I chalked that up to a possible infrasound experience. And I've had a couple of those that I don't know. I don't know what to do with, but definitely it affected me. It affected my body. Somebody else was with me that time, and they had the same experience. So that was just really, really strange, and I can't explain that. Another experience that had to do with infrasound, I was at the Bridges property in North Florida. They were featured on Finding Bigfoot. I think it was the first episode of the first season or something. They were down in Florida. But anyway, I went to their property, and she wanted me to look at a footprint that she'd found on her property, and I went with her. It was just she and I went to look at the footprint, and in the excitement to get to the group that we were with were like a mile away somewhere else, and she had come up in her golf cart, collected me, and we'd driven back to her property. And in the excitement to get there, I didn't bring anything with me. I didn't have a flashlight or anything. And so I'm kneeling down looking at the footprint, and it did look like a child's footprint, like a human child's footprint. It was really strange, and it was just a single footprint, and it wasn't, I couldn't find a discernible trackway. I couldn't see any transfer. I couldn't make any sense of it. In my limited understanding, I had some tracker training at this point, but I didn't really understand what I was looking at. And so I said, I feel better if I could study this a little bit with a flashlight. And I forgot my flashlight. And she's like, okay, I have a flashlight. Let me run down in the house and get it. So she ran down to her house and get it. And so there I was, in the middle of this part of her property, kneeling down, trying to study this footprint all by myself. She was gone. There was nobody else around. And so I'm thinking to myself, now would be the time something would happen, because here I am, a lone woman in the middle of nowhere. This is when something would happen. So before I could let that really freak me out, she's back with the flashlight. And so I take the flashlight, I study the print, still not getting any real information. I can't really make sense of it. And so I stand up, and she says, "Do you smell that?" And I'm like, "Smell what?" And she's like, "Walk back down the way I came and see if you can get a whiff of that smell." She goes, "I always smell that when these experiences start happening and when these creatures are around." And I'm like, "Okay." And so my phone rang just then, and it was my husband calling to check on me. And so I took the call, and I was talking to him as I was walking around the edge of her property. I never really caught a whiff of whatever she was talking about, but I walked all the way around the perimeter of this was like her front yard area, and I walked all the way around and got to the edge of the property, and I put my phone in my pocket. I finished my call, and as I took my first step in to this, it was like a vineyard area. When I took my first step into this vineyard to walk back towards her, all of a sudden I got goosebumps that started on the backs of my legs and went all the way up to the top of my head. And it was like goosebumps on top of goosebumps. The hair was just standing on end, and I felt very uncomfortable. And then at the same time, she had 3 dogs. One of her dogs just started to alert bark, arf, 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 and just like something was disturbing it. Something was bothering it. And so I just calmly, my heart was racing at this point. So I just calmly walked towards her. I knelt back down, studied the footprint, stood up, and just said, I don't really understand what's up with this footprint, if it's even a real footprint or just, a freak thing that happened here. But I would like to ask you, how are you feeling right now? And she's like, "Oh, I have goosebumps." And I'm like, "Oh, I do too." And so we're holding our arms next to each other with twin goosebumps. And I said, "Hey, I couldn't help but notice when I started feeling this way and getting the goosebumps, your dog started barking." And she said, "Oh yeah, when they're around, the youngest dog will be barking and the other 2 will be curled up with their ears down and their tails under." And I said, "Well, let's go check on your dogs." And so they had like this splint rail fence in the back. So we walk down and we check on the dog. And sure enough, it's the youngest dog. And he's just alert barking. And I'm watching the dog to see if he's barking in a particular direction, to see if he sees something that's upsetting him. And he's not. He's just kind of barking all around, just like an alert bark, like something's bothering him. But his nose is in the air and he's just all around. And so then we go to one side of the house. There's one of the older dogs curled up, ears back, tails tucked under. We go to the other side, the other dog's curled up, tail under. And so the dogs are clearly not happy. They're not loving what's happening. And so about that time, I start hearing something being thrown through trees, just repeatedly. Just sounds like a rock or something going through all the leaves in the trees. And I said, you hear that, right? She's like, "Yeah, I hear that." I said, "Well, let's walk towards that sound and see if we can see what's causing that sound." And so we do. And as we were walking in front of her house towards the side of her house, and as we round the corner, I do see movement out of the corner of my eye, but it was so fast. I have no idea what it was. It could have been a bird, butterfly. I have no idea, but I did see some quick movement out of my eye. But as we get over there, it stopped. And so I couldn't see anything, couldn't sense anything, but this feeling started to intensify. And so it was just she and I there. There was nobody else around. And so I said, let's call some people on the radio. Everybody was kind of preparing a big meal that they were going to have together. And I was kind of worried that nobody would have their radios on because, we were getting ready for this big dinner. And so I said, can I borrow your radio? Because I didn't bring my radio either. Can I borrow your radio and call over there? And we did. And so I call out, not expecting anybody to answer, but this little new guy that had never been on an expedition before happened to be in his tent and heard me calling. So he answered, and he was literally right around the corner. And I said, "We've got some stuff happening up here. Could you come up here, please?" And he said, "Yeah, I'll be right there." And he was there in less than a minute. And this guy was very tall. So when he came up to us, I rushed up to him and just kind of word vomited as fast as I could everything that had just happened, everything we had experienced. And so I'm looking up at him and telling him all this stuff. And then the 3 of us as a group start walking kind of back in front of the house. And as we get there, and as I finish telling him everything that happened, it was like a switch was flipped. All of a sudden, the dog stops barking, And just that feeling that was so intense and so uncomfortable just went away. And there was calm in the area. And so I think his name was Adam. And so Adam walked with us around the perimeter of the property. And she did have a bait station where she left fruits and things. And so we went and checked that. You know, nothing seemed out of place or unusual, but that was just really intense and really to the point I was getting uncomfortable and wanted someone else there. And so it was again, I can't explain it, and it was just so odd that as soon as Adam got there, it was like a switch was flipped. It was really, really interesting. Another experience similar to those two experiences that I had was in North Carolina. I was on an expedition with friends, a lot of them BFRO, and I had my dad with me, and we were walking across. Our campsite was on one side of the road, and across the other side there was a pre-Civil War cemetery, and there had been sightings in and around that cemetery. And so we were with a bunch of people that had never been there before. I think there were some people that were newer to doing, field research. And so it was extremely cold. We were all wearing those hunters jumpsuits. You put your arms in, your legs in, it zips up the front, and you had the big cone hat, and you look like a Sasquatch wearing it. So we're all wearing those because it was like so cold. And I was excited to lead everybody down there because it was after midnight. We were going down there. I knew I'd been there during the daylight multiple times. I knew the area. So I took point. I was going down first. My dad was a few paces behind me, and there were about 3 or 4 other guys, and they were all staggered, kind of walking in behind us. And 3 of them, I believe, had night vision. I don't know what level. I think it was probably level 2 night vision. And so they were kind of scanning the area as we were walking in, and I was happy everything was good. We were kind of talking a little bit and just walking down this gravel dirt road, and it was again, it wasn't even, it might have been a half-mile walk, not that far. And so we walked in, and as soon as I was almost to the cemetery, I have explained it several times. It just felt like I was walking into a wall of fear. All of a sudden, again, like a switch was flipped. I was terrified. I was really freaking out. I was really scared. And like I said before, I'm usually pretty brave. I'm usually, things don't bother me or rattle me too much, but my heart was beating really fast. My hands were starting to shake a little bit. I was really uncomfortable. And I just kept trying to talk myself down, like, you're okay. You're okay. You've got all these guys behind you. You're fine. Nothing's wrong. You're good. You're good. Just keep walking. And so I was just trying to breathe and walk, and just kind of chill out. You're fine. So I walked all the way into the cemetery, and helped my dad up into the cemetery. He had to kind of take a big step up into the cemetery. And these other guys came in, and they kind of stationed themselves around the perimeter, and we're just kind of watching. We did some calls, we did some knocks, nothing much. Nothing happened. We didn't have any real activity, and it was getting so cold. And we were sitting on the ground, which is a mistake. If it's cold, you shouldn't sit on the ground. And so I was worried about my dad because it was so cold, and I knew he had commented several times that he was getting really cold. And so after we'd been there for a while and we were freezing, I said, well, I'll take my dad back to the campsite, and I'll take him to the fire and get him warm. So I announced to the guys, hey, I'm going to take my dad back to the campfire. And so my dad and I made our way out of the cemetery. I stepped down onto the gravel road, and I started walking back, and then I turned, and my dad is turned, and he's like this. And I'm like, what are you doing, Dad? And he's like, oh, I thought somebody was coming with us. I heard somebody behind me. And I said, well, there's nobody there. Let's go. And it says just us. And so we walked pretty much shoulder to shoulder all the way down the road and across the main road and back into our campsite. I got my dad at the campfire. I stayed there a few minutes to warm up, and then I went to some other parts of the campsite to talk to some other people that hadn't gone with us, to let them know, what we'd done, and that my dad and I were back, and the other guys were headed back in a little bit. And so as I made my way back to the main campfire where my dad was, the guys that had been behind us came rushing back and said, "Hey, where was that trail you took?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" And they said, "The trail you took to get back to the campsite here." And I said, I came down the same road we walked in together. And they say, "No, no, no, no. The trail you took when you split from your dad." And I'm like, I never split from my dad. We walked shoulder to shoulder all the way down the road that we came in together. And I said, and so at that point we're all saucer-eyed looking at each other going, "Oh my gosh, you saw something that wasn't us, that wasn't me." And so anyway, we reenacted the whole thing. Everybody got all excited, and so we took more people, and we all went in, and we walked in the same way. We sat down for a few minutes, and then we exited the same way, and they watched us leave with the night vision. And so when we all congregated again around the campfire, they said, "Yeah, whatever we saw wasn't you. It didn't look the same. It was." And so what I think happened was when we walked in, something was in front of us, was there, putting the whammy on me or projecting or whatever they did, whatever it was, infrasound. And that's why I got scared. And then as we were leaving, something crossed behind my dad and paralleled us through the woods, which is what they saw when they saw something leave that they thought was me taking a different trail. So that's what I think happened. But that's the only way I can explain it. But again, it was weird, and several people saw and experienced different components of it. So those are my 3 experiences that have to do with infrasound or alleged infrasound.
Yeah, I don't know what to make with of the whole infrasound thing. I mean, I know that, I mean, it's proven that certain animals in the wild can put it off, but I mean, so that certainly means if Bigfoot exists, they might be capable of it as well. But one of the things I wanted to ask you, Melissa, I didn't want to interrupt you. When you were talking, you talked about the large gentleman that was built like a professional linebacker. You said he was using a Louisville Slugger to do wood knocks. One of the things that my co-host of that Bigfoot podcast, Brian King Sharp, and I have been talking about lately on that podcast is wood knocks. And what exactly are they? I myself, when I first got into this subject, I thought that they were carrying around or grabbing sticks and smacking trees. But I'm sure that you can agree with this. When you're out in the field walking around, it's hard to find a good stick to do a tree knock with. Anyone you grab, you hit the tree and it shatters. I mean,
Yeah.
because it's waterlogged, it's old, it's dead. Do you think it's possible that these aren't wood knocks, that they're vocalizations, that or slapping the tree or something other than wood on wood contact?
Absolutely. I have a friend that thinks that they are tongue pops, that they're clicking their
Yeah,
tongue.
yeah,
And I can totally see that being, we're calling it a wood knock because that's kind of what it sounds like to us, right? So
yeah.
or they're clapping their hands a certain way, or they're making a sound that sounds like a wood knock. I have no idea if it's, I mean, like you make a very valid point. I can't tell you how many times I've picked up a stick and hit it. It doesn't make any kind of real noise and the stick shatters into a million pieces. So they would obviously have the same issue, you would presume. And especially if they're strong, it's going to be, even more of an obliteration, right? Of
Mhm.
any kind of tree limb that they pick up. So I think it's a total possibility that they have, it's like you said, some sort of vocalization, or it's a clapping, or some sort of something they're doing that makes that sound that's loud, but it kind of mimics a tree knock. I'm totally open to that.
Yeah, I think so too. The tongue pops, tongue clicks, or what clacks, whatever you want to call them. I've heard people talk about like cupped claps, like cupping their hands and clapping.
Yeah, yeah,
I've heard people talk about like a cupped hand slapping a tree or slapping their chest. I mean, we don't
yeah.
know.
And yeah,
For
I've had people talk about that too, because apes beat their chest, and
yeah,
it makes a
yeah,
similar kind of sound. It sounds more like slapping to me than it does like a wood knock, but that's like they're cupping their hands while they're doing it. It can make a different sound. But yeah, absolutely. I think that's a total possibility.
yeah. I mean, as many people as I've talked to over the years, I've never ever that I can remember talked to anyone that remembers seeing a Sasquatch carrying a stick. And they would have to. They would have to be carrying a stick with them at any time because it's impossible. Like you said, it's impossible to at any moment find a good enough stick to do a tree knock with. Something else, I myself, in all the research that I've done with my group, Animal Research, there's been a few, just a couple of things that most people talk about experiencing that I haven't yet experienced. One of those was until recently, it has happened to me recently within the last 6 months or so, was having something thrown at you. I had never had anything thrown at me in the wild until an expedition that I went on with Dr. John Baranjaw and our good friend, another Manimal member, Kevin Jones. We were doing an investigation in Tennessee, in Dandridge, Tennessee, and we had something thrown at the cabin that we were staying at. These people that own property were having issues up there. Did we lose? There she is.
Sorry.
These people were having issues, and we were up there checking it out, and they lived in this log cabin with a tin roof. So if an acorn or something had fallen from a tree and landed on that tin roof, that makes a very distinctive sound.
Hmm.
This was something that was hummed, that was just thrown like high velocity at the side of the house. It wasn't tin. So something threw something at the house. So I got to mark that off my list.
Hmm.
One that I have not marked off to this day is the smell. I have never smelled what people talk about. Have you experienced that smell?
I have smelled something, but to me it didn't smell like what people describe, like that wet mangy dog on like it's been rotting for 100 years. I've
Yeah.
never, I haven't experienced, so I'm not sure. I'm not sure that's whatever I was smelling was exactly that. I think I would know. I think it would, I think I'd be like, yes, that's not like anything I've ever smelled before. So yeah, I would have to say I'm pretty sure I have not, but I've smelled some weird stuff, but I don't think it was that.
Okay. All right. So no sightings. The things you've talked about, you've never had any kind of visual of something that you thought might be a Sasquatch.
No, no eyewitness, no, what do you call it? Class A, nothing seen with the eyes.
Okay, thermal or anything like that.
No, no.
Okay. Okay. Um, Real quick, I do want to get your opinion on tonight's poll question. It has been up. We have many votes on it right now. Well, let me just read the poll question. Are women researchers more likely to have an encounter than men researchers? Right now, 70% of our audience says yes, 30% say no. What say you, Melissa?
Yes, I believe
You think
so.
so?
Hmm. I just it myself as a woman, I've had some interesting experiences that have happened when either it was a really small group and I was a woman in the group, or it was just women, where things had happened. Also, it seems like when there have been calls made, that the female calls tend to get more of a response than the male calls. That's just what I've experienced. I don't know that that's the case for everybody, but that's just kind of what I've experienced. I know some people feel like women's calls are the only ones that ever get any responses. I've heard people say that, but I don't know if I agree with that entirely, because I've been with in groups where men have made really great calls and gotten responses, but I feel like, women as a general rule, just we don't present as much of a threat, physically. Generally speaking, men are bigger, and generally speaking, men go into the woods to hunt more than women do. I would say that's still probably true, that there's more men than women that do that. And then women usually, I'm thinking of the different eyewitness accounts where I've interviewed a woman. If they're outside, they're busy doing things with kids, so they're distracted. Their attention is focused on children, so they're often a little bit distracted, which makes them easier to observe. And then again, they're handling young, so again, less of a threat. So I just feel like, as a group, we are less threatening, and of course, as a group, we smell infinitely better than men, right? So it makes us more appealing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can't argue with that. All right, before we get to the questions from our audience, I'm curious, Melissa, in your opinion, because we don't know, what is your opinion? What is Bigfoot? What are they?
Well, I don't know, but I think I can see how the Gigantopithecus theory could play into the existence of these apes. That's kind of where I tend to lean in my thinking. To me, that makes sense. That, an upright walking ape thought to have died out didn't. And then, thus we have sightings of different, I guess, for lack of a better term, races of these things. They're called different things in different parts of the world, and they look a little bit different in different parts of the world, just like people. So to me, it makes sense that there was some sort of that's the ancestry. That if that's not the exact ancestry, it's something similar to that. That's where my thought process leans. That makes sense to me. It's reasonable to me.
Absolutely. I agree with you. For the longest time, I thought Gigantopithecus. I was in that camp, and I still don't know. I mean, I'm still not completely sure that I'm out of it because, like you said, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
We're discovering species that were thought to be extinct that aren't.
Yeah, didn't they just discovered some sort of new deer, like in India or something recently?
Seemed like I heard something about that, and
there's
then
just a brand new. I mean, so
what
things are
is
being discovered constantly. So,
what is the dog? The kind of I was just listening to it, an episode of Joe Rogan on the way to Ohio with my son. I can't remember that. Oh, it's on the tip of my tongue. And like a dog or a coyote breed that was thought to be extinct, thylacine.
Yeah, I was going to jump in and say, you're hurting yourself. It's the thylacine.
Yeah, the thylacine is thought to be extinct, but there's been pictures.
Right.
We're on the verge of proving that no, there's some of them left out there. I mean, it's very possible, in my opinion, that we're talking about Gigantopithecus and the land bridge. I mean, people argue, how did they get over here? Well, the land bridge, before the continent split and before the land split and made the continents, it's very possible that some made their way over here and didn't die.
Right.
I don't know. That's just I'm not smart enough to talk on all of this by any means, but I don't know. That makes sense to
Well,
me.
I mean, it does. It makes sense. I could buy into that being how they got here. But again, I know that I don't know.
Exactly. Exactly. All right, we got a few questions for you from our audience. First one, Wendell. Melissa, are you kin to Jerry Adair?
Yes, I am. I am married to him.
There you go. Short and sweet. I like it. My good buddy Troy, what is the ultimate evidence to prove the existence of Sasquatch? I'm curious to see what you say to see if we agree.
The ultimate evidence to prove the existence of
What will it
Sasquatch.
take to prove Sasquatch is real?
I think ultimately it will take a body.
There you go.
Sadly. But I don't want to be the one to pull the trigger, but ultimately I think that's what it's going to take.
Oh my God. Have you listened to my show? Because you're quoting everything. You're quoting all of my beliefs. Yeah. It's going to take a body. It's not going to happen until we have a body.
Yeah.
But I do not want to be the one to pull the trigger.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't, I personally just have a goal of seeing them and witnessing them in their natural habitat and just learning about them as a species. But I'm okay with that and I can accept that. I know science is going to need a body though.
As far as me and my group, Manimal Research, we will never put out an expedition with the goal to go out and kill one. I do not want to be the one to pull the trigger and bring one in. The only way I would ever shoot one is if I felt I was in danger or my family or someone that I was with was in danger. That's the only way that I would. I hope that someone hits one with a car, maybe. Or, I mean, the ultimate would be someone walking up on a dead one. That would be ideal, but it hasn't happened yet. But I agree with you. It's going to take a body, but I'm never going to be the one to do it. All right, Wendell, did you find the rocks? I'm not sure what rocks he's talking about.
Oh, that were thrown, the things that were thrown when we were talking about
Yeah.
things that were thrown. Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, it was, what's interesting is somebody had been eating an apple and threw a partially eaten apple in. And one of the things that was thrown at us was that apple that hadn't been eaten. So we did find it. It was interesting.
Okay. Very cool. All right. Our good buddy Ristel. Melissa, are you familiar with Hellbent Holler? They research North Georgia often and have run into a lot of activity, but also signs of occult activity. Have you ever run into that as well?
I haven't heard of that group, but that is awesome to know that they're here in Georgia. I would love to go out with you guys sometime. As far as the occult, I personally have not run into that, but I know other people who have, so I know it does happen from time to time.
All right, very cool. All right, Melissa, take a few minutes or however long you need and tell everyone where they can find you.
Sure. You can follow my my Bigfoot exploits on my Bigfoot Chick Adventures page on Facebook. I also have a Bigfoot shop. It's called Rebel Sass Bigfoot Shop. rebelsassbigfoot.com is the shop, and that's Rebel Sass, like in Sasquatch, not Rebels Ass, because that would be weird. So it's Rebel Sass, rebelsassbigfoot.com. And we have a page for that too. It's Rebel Sass. So you can find that on Bigfoot as well. You can follow me on Instagram at Siren BFC1. So that's Siren, SIREN, Bigfoot Chick 1. So follow me on Instagram.
All right, very cool. If you will send me all of those links, I will be happy to share those when we release this to podcast. Because what we do, we do these live shows, and then I take the audio from these shows and I upload those to our podcast, which has a much larger audience. So you'll reach a lot more people that way. So just send me those links, and I'll be happy to include it.
Okay, great. Will do.
All right. Awesome, man. Thank you so very much for taking the time to come and hang out with us. It was very, very, very cool.
Sure, I loved being here. I always love talking Bigfoot.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, he does too.
All right, ma'am. I hope you enjoyed the rest of your evening, and we will talk soon.
Great. Thanks so much for having me.
Of course. Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Very cool.
All right. Yeah, she's a cool lady. That
Love
was a fun show.
I
That
like her
hour,
hat.
yeah, cool hat.
I like her hat.
That hour freaking flew by.
Yeah, it's like we just started, but that's what we said
Yeah,
before the show.
you get talking about a subject that you're interested in,
Mhm.
and I mean the time flies. Really, really cool. All right. Before we get out of here, I want to say thank you to, I mean, who is always coming through for us, Miss Chris Blaylock. Hit us with a $25 Venmo.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you very, very, very much, ma'am. We love you. We are so appreciative of you. All right. You got anything else before we get out of here?
I don't think so. I'll keep you all updated on my doggy adventures.
I hope the next time we come on, you have, it's named Nelson.
Nelson Lane, Layne. She said.
I hope you have Nelson Lane with you and can share
I'll bring-
some pictures.
And if he is here on Tuesday, I will bring him on.
Sounds good. All right, everybody. Thank you so very much for all of the support, everything that you guys do. We love y'all. Thank you for everything. Until we talk to y'all again, I'll take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Bye.